Hi everyone, welcome to today's video. For today, we're gonna be making this super fun birthday card. I am obsessed with this card, can I just say that? So, I really like this card, mainly because it's the first time that I've really played around with our new embossing paste, and I absolutely love it. As a side note, if I get this video up today, this is gonna be the second video for today. I had an issue with the video that I posted earlier this morning. I filmed it a few days ago and I just never got it up. So I am super excited to be bringing you guys a new card for today. So, to get started, let's go over everything that we're going to need. We're gonna need quite a few ink pads, so I guess we can start there. When I have a hard time finding inspiration or I just don't really know exactly what I want to do, I will just search on Pinterest like handmade cards or homemade cards, stuff like that, and just search around to try and get some inspiration. And I was looking and I found someone who did, I think there are these stamps now where you like stamp it and then you turn it and then you stamp it and you turn it like 4 times and then it gives you this really cool kind of background. And there was somebody that had done that with a bunch of different colors, using all the different colors of the rainbow, and it just turned out really pretty. So I wanted to do something using a bunch of different colors in a card for today. So we're using quite a few different ink pads, but I'm just gonna go with it. Most of these come from the Brights collection. So we have Pumpkin Pie, Pacific Point, Daffodil Delight, and Real Red. So those are all in the Brights collection, so you may have a lot of those already. And then we have 2 from the Regals collection. We're gonna be using Garden Green and Perfect Plum. And then we have just our basic black ink pad. So we're using quite a few inks, like I said, but this one turns out super cute. So I think it's totally worth it. The stamp set that we're using for today is the In the City stamp set. And this is a Hostess set from the new catalog. So if you don't know, we have a few sets that are specifically for Hostess. And essentially what that means is you either personally yourself have a party over a certain, or an order over a certain amount, and you get Hostess rewards. You could get this stamp set. Another way people earn Hostess rewards is by having like a party, and all of their friends put in an order of 30, 50 bucks, and then depending on that the size of everyone's orders, you get some Hostess rewards. So when you earn those Hostess rewards, there are a few stamp sets that you're eligible to get, which are our Hostess sets. So right now, we have a little promotion going on specifically for Hostesses. We're actually getting $35 extra in Hostess rewards when you reach a certain level in your party's sales. So I have been really into doing Facebook parties online because a lot of you guys, a lot of my viewers aren't, we've never met in person before, and you guys are on the different side of the country than I am. So Facebook parties are really fun to do. So I'm going to be using this In the City set, which I absolutely love. And I really recommend getting your hands on this if you can. So if you're interested in doing an online party, or if you're in the Denver, Colorado area, I'm more than happy. I'd love to do an in-home party. Just let me know and we can definitely get something set up so that you can get your hands on this set. So that special that we're doing for Hostesses, I can't remember exactly when it ends. I'll put the information on the screen somewhere to give you guys the exact information. It'll always be in my blog post, which is the first link down below. But I am using this stamp set, so I did want to kind of mention that so that those of you who may be interested can get some Hostess rewards and get your hands on this one, because it's absolutely amazing. I love this. And the card that we're making is so simple, but there are so many fun things you can do with this set. I just can't wait. So that was a long spiel, but we're using the In the City stamp set. We're also using our fun new embossing paste. So I'm really, like I said, I'm excited to be playing with this. And then we also have some palette knives that we sell to go along with the embossing paste. We're going to be using those as well today. We have our masks in the catalog, so we're going to be using this cloud mask. You can see that mine has already been started to be well loved, so we're going to be using that. And then for a paper, it's a really, really simple one this time. I have a piece of watercolor paper here, which is cut at 5 1/4 by 3 inches. I was initially going to do some watercoloring, so that's why I did it on watercolor paper. If you don't have watercolor paper, you could do it on regular Whisper White cardstock and it would work perfectly fine. I just had watercolor paper cut and ready to go, so I'm going to continue to use it, but you could use just regular paper. That would work fine too. I also have a piece of soft sky, and this is cut at 4 inches by 5 1/4. And then I have our card base, which is in basic black, which is cut at 8 1/2 by 5 1/2. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the first thing that we're gonna do is stamp our little city scene on, our little city scene, on the bottom of our piece of watercolor paper here. But I wanted to show you guys all of the building stamps that I'm using for this, just so you can get a good idea of what exactly I'm using. So I'm gonna bring them all out here. And I think in this set you get 60 stamps, so it's honestly such a good value for what you get in it. And they're smaller stamps, so you can use them for so many different things, but they're so versatile as well. So again, I think this is a really great set. So these are the stamps that I'm using. So we have this one really tall building here, and then we have this one, which is more of like a clock tower. This one to me looks like a church. I'm assuming that's what they were going with or going for, or something along those lines. And then you have two that are more, I think they look more like a house. So I'm going to be using those two, and then the two trees. So we're using quite a few stamps that come in this set. So I just wanted to make sure that you guys understand which ones I'm using as I start to do everything. And all of the stamps that I'm using are the outlines. So this set, here, let me pull over the set. So as you can see, this set comes with one stamp that's the outline, like this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. And then it has smaller or other stamps that are to stamp like the inside of the building. And so we're only using the ones that are just the outside lines. I think it gives it a really nice, fun look. You could use the other, you could do the opposite, you could do both and do like varying colors. You could do a lot of stuff with it, but this is what I'm doing for today, and I really like how it turned out. So I'm going to take all of my stamps and kind of push them up to the front, bring in my watercolor piece, and like I mentioned earlier, we're doing kind of a rainbow color scheme. So I am going to be going red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple. So I am going to start first with yellow, and the reason I do that is because I want my yellow and my green to be right in the middle, and if you start on one side you may end over here and have too much space, so I like to start in the middle and work my way out. So I'm going to take Daffodil Delight, and I'm going to take this house right here that's a little bit fatter, I would say. I don't know how to describe these. And I'm going to go ahead and just ink this up in my Daffodil Delight ink. Now, because we have two colors that are going to be in the middle, I'm not going to do it directly in the middle. I'm going to do it a little off to the left. So right about there. And it doesn't have to be perfect. You can do it however you want. It's not a big deal. It's really, this card is so fun to do. Just enjoy it. Okay, so next I'm going to do, you can continue to go to the left if you want to. I like to kind of work my way down. So I'm going to take my garden green ink here. And next we're going to use this stamp that looks a lot like what I would say a regular house kind of look. I don't know what exactly you would call it, but it's one of the other little houses. And because I am using watercolor paper, I'm making sure that when I stamp these, I am really letting the stamp make contact with the paper for a little bit longer than I normally would, just to make sure all of the ink transfers, because the watercolor paper is a lot thicker and has a lot more texture. So next I'm going to go I'm going to go one on each side. So when I was playing around with this, I noticed that using 6 of the buildings, I got a little extra on each side. So what I'm doing to compensate for that is I'm going to be stamping a couple of trees. So there are 2 trees in the set. There's like a smaller, shorter one and a longer one. I'm going to start with my longer one for this particular section, and I'm going to take it and I'm going to ink it up in my garden green ink. and I'm gonna stamp off. I have a scratch piece of paper to the left of me. I'm gonna stamp off, and then I'm going to stamp this right next to my yellow house. And that just fills up some of that space there, and it gives it a little bit of texture, I think. Then to the left of that tree, we're going to take this really tall, wide building that looks kind of like maybe like an office building. I don't really know, or maybe it's like an apartment building. And for this one, we're going to use our pumpkin pie ink. And get this nice and inked up. And stamp this right next to our tree. Just like so. So stinking cute. Okay. Then to the left, or I'm sorry, to the right of our greenhouse, we're going to use the chapel. That's what I'm calling it. And our Pacific Point ink. Get this one all nice and inked up. And can't really see. Sorry if you guys can see my little noggin. Okay. And lift up. Super stinking cute. Okay, so we're done with our Pacific Point ink. Now, I do want to fill up a little bit of space over here again, so I'm going to do the same thing, but with the other tree from the set. So this one is the shorter one. I'm going to take my garden green ink again, and I'm going to ink it up. And then I'm going to stamp off once on my scratch piece of paper, and then just stamp down my little tree right there. Super, super cute. Now that's the last tree I'm gonna do, so I'm gonna just put my garden green ink away. And since I'm already working on the right side, I'll just continue to work on the right side. I do think I'm actually going to bring in my scratch paper, just because I don't know if I might need to stamp off a little bit. So I'm just gonna bring this in. We're gonna need this in a minute anyways. So I'm now going to take my, what is this, Perfect Plum ink. And this is the tall, skinny clock tower building. And I'm just going to take this and stamp it right to the right of the tree that we just did. So cute. Okay, so we have one last building. And I'm gonna grab my Real Red ink. This yellow building here, we're gonna use the exact same stamp to stamp the red. I'm not even gonna wash it off because yellow is a lighter color than red. The red will overpower it, and it's not gonna make a difference whether you clean it off or not. And let's just stamp that right there next to our orange building. Super cute. So now we have our little town scene, and I think it's just absolutely adorable. So here's where the fun really comes into play. We're going to be using our cloud mask and our new embossing paste to put some clouds in the sky, because how could you have a little city and not have clouds in it, right? So there are a couple of different ways that you can do this, and again, I kind of experimented with this earlier today to see which way works best, and which way is the easiest, and which way it gives you the best results for the amount of time that it takes. And I'll explain to you guys both ways that I've done. I'm going to show you the way that I prefer and the way that I think works best, but I'll explain to you the other way that I did as well. The first step, regardless of how you are going to apply the embossing paste, is I'm going to take some washi tape here, and let me just get some tape. Take a piece here, and I'm going to split it in half, and I'm just going to stick this on my lid right here because I have it, and I'm going to flip everything over, and I'm going to just position my piece with the mask on the front where we just put the ink. And then I'm going to take my washi tape and just stick it down on the back. Just like that. And when you flip it over, you have all of these little areas that is going to get embossing paste. Makes sense, right? Okay, so this is where you can decide how you want to essentially mask off or not put embossing paste over where you have your buildings. So the way, the first way is you can take, I would recommend using, excuse me, this really, really tiny palette knife and this like long and skinny one and fill in. And then when you get to areas that are close to a building, just use the little point and fill it in that way. You know, the ones up here that aren't even close to a building, you can just scrape over those and it's no big deal. And then, like I said, when you get to a building, like this one's perfect, you can kind of go around it and just fill in the areas that you want to fill in. If you get some, you can also scrape it off using this little point. So this one's a really good tool for that. I think so I actually did that technique with my sample that I have here. I think it works. I found that it took a lot longer to get around the little buildings, and the other way that I'm going to show you works just as well. Oh, sorry, my card's falling off my desk. The other way that I'm going to show you today, which is the way that I like a little bit better, it works, I think, just the same. I mean, it doesn't have the exact same effect, but it works well enough for me, and it's a lot faster. So I'm going to show you guys the other way that you can do it, or the other way that I played around with that works really well. So I'm going to take this larger embossing or palette knife that we have, and I'm going to just grab it and get some of my embossing paste out and just start to smear this on. Now, I'm going to focus right now on the clouds that don't really have any buildings near them. This one has just a little bit, but like I was saying, you can use that really thin one to kind of scrape off where you don't want embossing paste to go. So that's kind of what I'm going to do. So I'm going to just smear this on to these top clouds up here that I'm not gonna worry about getting covering up a building. Okay, so I'm just gonna smear that on right now. And the reason that I'm doing this first is because I want to give stuff time to start drying. Depending on how thick you use, how thick of a layer you use with the embossing paste, it can take a little bit of time to dry. So I like to do that first just because I know that I'm gonna have embossing paste there no matter what. The other thing is, make sure you scrape your palette knife off. Don't just toss it all away. You can put the stuff back in the jar and use it again, and it works perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with it. So now what I'm going to do is take some sticky notes, and I'm just going to mask off the areas. So the difference between this and using that palette knife like I was telling you and kind of drawing around the areas, this is a lot faster. The look is, so you'll see, you get stark lines, but I'll show you how we can combat that before the embossing paste dries. So like with this, essentially I would want to go right around my little tree. Well, I don't want to get this building either, so I'm going to put it up right here, and it's going to give us a really crisp line right there. I'll show you how we can kind of manipulate that and make it look a little bit better when we take the mask off. I want to cover up the little steeple here. So I'm actually going to take my scissors, and I'm going to take this thin sticky note, and I'm just going to kind of cut it so that it's a little bit thinner. Whoops. And you could do this before you do the top clouds up here. Like I said, I just did it this way so that I give myself a little bit of extra time to dry. Okay, I have to tell you guys a funny story, because I'm gonna have to stop for a second. The chair that I have at my desk just like randomly starts lowering itself. So sometimes I just start sinking in the middle of filming a video. Don't ask me how, why, I don't know, but that just happened. So anyways, all I'm gonna do right now is continue to put sticky notes to cover up and make sure I mask off all of the areas that I don't want to have embossing paste on them. So this little area right here, I'm just gonna put another, and I'm only using sticky notes because I just think that they're easy and they're fairly inexpensive. So now that I have all of that, I'm gonna turn it this way, and I'm gonna take my embossing paste again and my large palette knife, and I'm just going to get some more, and I'm just gonna smear it all over where we just put those sticky notes. Okay, I really like this way better as well, because you can be a little bit messier with it. Instead of having to sit and make sure you're very particular at where things go, you can be pretty messy and just kind of go for it. One thing that I will say is with this technique, I think you need to add a little bit of texture so that when you go to correct like the really stark lines like I was talking about, it doesn't look as noticeable. So what I'm going to do is take this palette knife, which is a little bit longer and skinnier, and all I'm going to do is just very, very gently tap on the clouds, and that just gives it a little bit of texture. And like I said, once we try to like mess with some of these lines, you'll see how it helps just make it all look more uniform. And I like the texture of these clouds anyways, instead of them being just like flat. I kind of like them having texture. They look more like clouds to me. Obviously this is completely optional. Change what you don't want to do. But I kind of like that. Okay, so now we have that done, and I'm just going to peel off all of my sticky notes. And then I'm going to gently just peel away the mask. Ta-da! One thing is you want to make sure you clean up your masks and your palette knives and all of that stuff fairly quickly. I mean, if you leave it for a little while, I think I left mine overnight, I want to say. I wouldn't recommend doing that, but you can just use some soap and water and it comes off fairly easily. Even if you clean it off right away, you're going to have a little bit of residue on there. It's not going to hurt the mask. You're still going to be able to use it perfectly fine. So I wouldn't worry too much about it, but you do want to make sure you clean it off if you want it to stay nice and crisp still. So I'm going to set that off to the side. And now what I'm going to do, so I think right here, actually, I'm just gonna scooch all of this over a little bit more so I don't stick my hand in some embossing paste. So the little church here with the steeple, I think, is a really great representation of what I was kind of saying, where you're gonna get these really stark lines and see where the embossing, or I'm sorry, where the sticky note was. So to combat that, all I'm going to do is take some embossing paste, and I like using this really, really thin one because it's a lot easier to control. I'm going to get a little tiny, tiny, tiny bit of embossing paste on my palette knife, and I'm just going to go in here and kind of break up that line and fill in where there's missing cloud, essentially, around the little steeple. So this is basically the technique that you're doing, kind of what I was talking about before, just using this palette knife to begin with. The reason I like just using this to fill in those little areas that just didn't get it quite right is because instead of having to do that with every single cloud, it's a lot easier to do it just in a couple of little tiny areas and fix up what just needs a little bit of love. I'm going to do the same thing down here close to this tree. And this one I'm not super worried about. I just don't want that stark line. And as you're adding the embossing paste, you can kind of scrape at that really straight line and it breaks it up a little bit so it doesn't look as bad. And like you can see, this is what I was talking about with the texture. The texture really helps to kind of hide anything that was going on. And I think I might want to put a little bit over here next to this red building. This embossing paste is also very forgiving. It does dry relatively quickly, so you want to work pretty fast. You wouldn't want to let it set for like 5 minutes and then try and go in. You want to do it right away. But if you just kind of scrape at it, it'll definitely work with you, and you can get rid of those really, really thick lines. I would also just recommend having, when you're working with like the little tip and such a small amount of embossing paste, that's going to dry a lot quicker, obviously. So I would just recommend having a paper towel or a baby wipe or whatever you keep at your, wherever you craft. I would keep that handy just so you can use it to get some of the embossing paste off of your palette knife. Now the other thing is I did get some on the top of this building up here. So all I'm going to do is just very, very, very gently take my palette knife here and just scrape at the embossing paste and it'll come right off. just like that. And then I'm just gonna blow the excess away. So now what we're going to do, I think I might fix up this little cloud a little bit more. I am just going to make sure everything looks good, and then I'm going to give this 5-10 minutes to sit. Now I've heard you can hit this with the heat tool and it'll dry. I have gotten the best results where I just kind of let it sit and I don't fuss with it. It really doesn't take long at all to dry, and you don't need it to be rock solid to finish up the card. You just want it to be pretty much dry so that you don't mess up your clouds at all. So I'm gonna set this aside, kind of clean up my desk. It gives me a chance to go rinse off my mask and my palette knives, and then we will be right back. Okay, so our piece is dry. One thing that I do like to do before I assemble everything is I don't know how well you're gonna be able to see on camera, but this cloud up here, it looks like there was probably just like a little sliver of a cloud, but it's off of where my paper actually is. And that happens with even like the regular size clouds. So all I do is take a craft knife, and you can just gently scrape holding your craft knife parallel to the top, the side of your paper, and just kind of scrape, and it'll just get that excess embossing paste off of there, and it'll leave you with nice crisp lines, which I particularly really like. So it only takes a second. Like I said, this embossing paste is really, really easy to work with. It's not hard to mess around with. It's really hard to mess it up, to be honest, because if you don't like something, you can kind of just scrape it away and get what you like. So there's that. Now the next thing we're going to do is take our piece of Pool Party here. I'm sorry, not Pool Party. This is Soft Sky. I'm going to use Fast Fuse just because I'm using watercolor paper and we have the embossing paste on it, and I just want to make sure that it stays really well on our little card here. So I'm going to take this and my piece of Soft Sky, and I'm just going to line it up and make sure that the corners and the sides meet, and then go ahead and place it down, and it should line up pretty well. Then one of our last steps, we're going to take our sentiment. I'm using the Happy Birthday sentiment from this set. There's quite a few different sentiments that you could do. There are some that say like special delivery, welcome to the neighborhood, those kinds of things, which I think would be super cute for this card, but I'm just gonna go with your classic Happy Birthday because why not? And dun, 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 dun. Then I'm just going to center it in the bottom here and just stamp this down. Perfect. Whoa, that was almost a catastrophe. Okay, and then our last step, I'm just going to take my card base. I need to find my bone folder, and I'm just going to, oops. Wow, I'm having a super hard time lining up this card base, and I don't know why. Okay, there we go. I'm just gonna fold that in half. I'm gonna flip this over, and I'm actually gonna put this up using some dimensionals just to give it a little bit of added texture, and why not? I love dimensionals, so why not use them? That one's up a little high. You're gonna be able to see it from the back. If you ever do that and you rip a little bit of the back of your card, don't worry about it. Nobody's ever going to know. Okay. And then let's just take the backings off of all of these. Okay. And then we will just put it on our card base. And that's it, guys. Super, super cute and easy cards. I just love this card. I will be honest with you. I think it's so stinking adorable. I love the little cityscape. It just really, this one really just gets me. It really speaks to me. So I hope you guys enjoy this card. And again, This set is awesome, but you can only get it if you are a hostess or you have an order over a certain amount. So if you want more details on how you can do that, whether it be through your own personal order or whether we do a party with you to get in a bunch of different orders, please let me know. I'd love to help you out and make sure that you can get your hands on this set. So email me at littlemooncreation@gmail.com, and to start shopping any of our awesome Stampin' Up! Products, you can go directly to littlemooncreation.stampinup.net and start shopping from there. So I hope you guys are having a fantastic day and enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I will see you in the next video.